Welcome to the University of Kentucky's Backyard Streams program. This module will cover an overview of stream buffer establishment approaches and plant selection and installation related to active stream buffer establishment. Riparian buffers, also called stream buffers or buffer zones, are transitional zones between a water body and an upland area such as a mowed lawn or field. Buffer zones often consist of 3 zones of planted native species. Zone 1 includes moisture-tolerant plants, often trees, that provide shading to the stream. This shading helps regulate water temperature and keep temperatures at optimal levels for aquatic life. Zone 2 often includes shrubs that are moisture-tolerant but not necessarily wetland plants. Zone 3 includes grasses and herbaceous perennials that are tolerant of moderate to dry soil conditions. In urban settings, it may not be possible to create this delineation due to space and visibility constraints, but it is a good idea to include trees, shrubs, grasses, and herbaceous plants. This variety of plant types helps create a healthy stream buffer habitat. As discussed in the Backyard Stream Basics module, there are 2 general approaches to establishing a stream buffer. A passive stream buffer establishment approach allows plants to naturally establish along the stream by creating no-mow zones. Plants that exist as well as seeds in the soil, known as the seed bank, will grow to create a stream buffer. Passive buffers are easy to create and are relatively low maintenance. However, if buffers are abandoned and not given some level of maintenance, unwanted plants are likely to establish and take over. Non-native invasive plants like honeysuckle, winter creeper, and multiflora rose are likely to take over when mowing ceases. In urban stream systems, a no-mow zone with no maintenance is not a desirable stream buffer habitat and will likely not be acceptable to neighbors. These areas can become overgrown and appear to be forgotten about. Public safety officials may fear they present a safety hazard to passersby. Passively established stream buffers still need maintenance. Mowing once or twice per year may be desirable to limit woody plant establishment and will promote grasses and wildflowers. Mowing in early spring, March through April, is recommended for this strategy. Spot treatments of invasive plants or noxious weeds may also be needed. An active stream buffer establishment approach involves many more steps than a passive approach. Once the initial site assessment has been completed, you will need to create a planting plan. Some things to consider when making your planting plan include: what is your budget? How wide will your stream buffer be? What do you want the buffer to look like in 5 years or even 10 years? Who will be responsible for maintaining the buffer? One of the first steps may be to remove undesirable plants from your stream buffer. These plants are often invasive and non-native and do not provide the ecosystem services that native plants suitable for streamside plantings can provide. Examples of species you may want to remove are bush honeysuckle, winter creeper, and garlic mustard. These plants can be removed by mechanical means such as cutting and pulling, but may also require herbicide treatment to prevent regrowth. The next step is selecting plants. Selecting plants for your stream buffer may be one of the most challenging components simply because of the vast number of plant options available. To begin, include a combination of trees, shrubs, and herbaceous plants in your plan. Having multiple types of plants will provide diverse root systems to hold soil in place and absorb excess nutrients. Next, select plants that can tolerate wet conditions if they are close to the stream, and drier conditions if they will be further up the stream bank. You will likely include wetland plants, moisture-tolerant plants, as well as moderate to dry soil tolerant plants. You will also need to consider the amount of sunlight your plants will need. A few design elements to keep in mind when making a planting plan include thinking in both horizontal and vertical dimensions. Are there overhead wires that must be accommodated? How wide can you make your buffer? And consider your view shed. That is it desirable to see the stream from certain locations? Also, think about seasonal interest. When will certain plants be in bloom? Are there plant choices that offer visual interest in the winter when the leaves are gone? A strategy that is often successful in stream buffer plantings is that of mass plantings for large swaths of color. This curated native planting approach provides nonverbal cues to passers-by that this area intentionally looks like this. People who are unfamiliar with native plants and stream buffers may mistake this area as forgotten or weedy. Bursts of color from plants in bloom let them know that it is here for a reason. Blooming plants can also serve as a border between the stream buffer and a mowed area of lawn. An uninformed mowing crew is less likely to mow down pretty blooms or mass plantings of the same species than something that just looks like weeds. You may consider consulting with a design professional when utilizing an active stream buffer establishment approach. Wetland plants may be planted in or very near the water's edge and can handle saturated soil conditions. We sometimes call that having their feet wet, in reference to the plants being tolerant of their roots being wet for long periods of time. Trees in this category may include black willow, sycamore, swamp white oak, and bald cypress. It is important to note that some species may be native to a particular state, but not truly native statewide. Bald cypress is native to western Kentucky, but not native for true ecological restoration in the central bluegrass of Kentucky. Shrubs in this category include buttonbush, elderberry, and swamp rose. Herbaceous wetland plants that are recommended for stream buffers include soft rush, fox sedge, rose mallow or swamp rose mallow, southern blue flag, swamp milkweed, and boneset. Moisture-tolerant plants are those that can be planted right on the stream bank, 6 inches to 5 feet away from the water's edge. This range of moisture tolerance makes these plants versatile and gives you many choices for your buffer installation. Trees in this zone include sycamore, box elder, and serviceberry. Shrubs include silky dogwood, roughleaf dogwood, buttonbush, elderberry, strawberry bush, and ninebark. Herbaceous plants include great blue lobelia, cardinal flower, Joe Pye weed, swamp milkweed, jewelweed, and turtlehead. Grasses can be included in this zone as well and include foul manna grass, switchgrass, native Kentucky cane, and Virginia wild rye. A bit of useful information here is that Virginia wild rye competes well with the undesirable invasive plant winter creeper. Plants in the moderate to dry soil category will serve as the outer edge of your stream buffer. This is a good place to add masses of color to your planting that can serve as a visual cue that the buffer is intentional and not just an overgrown weed thicket. The outer edge can be an inviting place to draw people closer and hopefully inspire them to take a closer look. Many species of trees do well in this zone and can include small trees like redbud or large trees such as maples and oaks. Adding trees with edible fruits is an idea to consider. Small fruit-producing trees such as wild plum and pawpaw provide seasonal fruits that can be enjoyed by humans as well as other wildlife. Ninebark, silky dogwood, roughleaf dogwood, and spicebush are good choices for shrubs in this zone. Grasses for this zone include little and big bluestem, switchgrass, and Virginia wild rye. Herbaceous plants include wild bergamot, which is also known as bee balm, black-eyed Susan, gray-headed coneflower, New England aster, common milkweed, and butterfly milkweed. Many of the flowering plants in this zone also provide much-needed habitat for pollinator species. The plants presented here represent broad moisture categories and are not inclusive of all plant material options. Plant lists are available from a variety of sources. University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service plant lists are available from publications that you can access from our resources links. Lexington-Fayette Urban County Government's Plant by Numbers program offers plant suggestions and planting layout options. Consider comparing these lists to optimize plant selections for your location. Sourcing plant material is the next challenge once you've made a planting plan, but it should be considered when selecting plants, along with your project budget. Some plant materials may be lying dormant in the seed bank, and all they need is the opportunity to sprout and grow. However, it's a good idea to plan on purchasing at least some plant materials. One source of plant materials are seeds. Single species or seed mixes are sold by the pound. Online calculators can help you determine what seeding rate you need based on the type of seed and seeding method. Small perennial starts, commonly called plugs in the horticulture industry, are sold individually and range in price based on species and source. Bare root tree seedlings, also called whips, are trees that have been grown in a nursery from seed and are usually 1 to 2 years old. These are sold in mass bundles and are usually inexpensive. These small seedlings are often used in mass plantings or community tree planting events. Live stakes or cuttings are a very inexpensive or often free method for planting willow trees, but special care must be taken in the harvest, handling, and planting of live stakes to ensure survival. Containerized trees and shrubs allow for the planting of more mature materials with the advantage of having the entire root system transplanted. However, special care should be given to ensure proper planting of larger materials. Keep in mind that containerized trees and shrubs are usually more expensive than smaller plants. The top image here shows installation of willow stakes during the dormant season. The bottom image is an example of swamp milkweed, boneset, ironweed, and sneezeweed that grew naturally from the seed bank. Most projects will include a variety of plant material, depending on your budget and availability of plants. The project pictured here included a balled and burlap tree, containerized shrubs, willow live stakes, and plugs being installed by volunteers. The area being planted with plugs was pre-treated with herbicide to kill the existing grass before installation. Usually the most limiting factor for establishing a planted stream buffer is your budget. The cost of materials will likely drive most of the decision-making process. However, your project location and resources such as labor and equipment will also factor into what materials are the best value choices. The number of nurseries or plant suppliers that have native plants suitable for stream buffers may be limited, but don't be tempted to buy questionable material from mass suppliers that may not be native. Buying good quality, healthy plant materials will give you a head start with plant survivability and ecosystem function. The overall appearance of a stream buffer may be a concern in some locations, especially if there are neighborhood restrictions or guidelines for green spaces or natural areas. Some cities may have a weed ordinance that your buffers should comply with or have a waiver from. Some people prefer the look of a heavily manicured landscape, while others appreciate a wild and woolly appearance. Sometimes a good compromise is intentional wildness or an area of curated native plants that provides ecosystem services without looking forgotten or overgrown. Strategically planting masses of color and delineating boundaries with mowed edges, signage, or benches will help soften the transition from mowed grass to native plant community. Appearance may also be dictated by the resources available for maintenance. Remember that all stream buffers, whether established through passive or active approaches, will need some level of maintenance. An individual or a specific group should be designated as the steward of the area. Check the stream buffer periodically for unwanted invasive plants and trash or debris that may have accumulated from storm events. Plan annual or semi-annual work days to prune or remove dead material as needed. Use this time to explore new plants that might have come in voluntarily and take pictures to document success or challenges. Thank you for completing this webinar on Riparian Buffer Vegetation 101. To learn more about riparian buffer vegetation, check out the publications and additional information sections. For additional information on backyard streams, visit our website at www.uky.edu/BAE/backyard streams.